Hello and welcome back to another video. So in this video I'm going to talk about a question that I received is how do you make your literature notes small enough so that they're more atomic rather than things that just keep growing and growing and growing. So this is something I've thought about quite a bit in my understanding of the Zettelkasten method and testing out some of these techniques. And I think there definitely are two mindsets to your notes. Is one, you sort of create the thing at the top, the title of the note, and then you put everything belonging to that title in there. I tend to do that for fleeting notes with a view that I'm just rapidly capturing information, and this is essentially going to be a throwaway note, and then I would create different literature notes from that. But another way of looking at it is actually taking each idea as you go as new notes. And I don't think there's really a wrong answer to either ways of doing it. The challenge is how you manage that. Whether it's one long note or whether it's lots of little notes, it's sort of the same thing depending on how you look at it. And that's where I lean to the tooling to be the thing that helps in that sense, where if the tool can help you break down information, then you're essentially getting more atomic down into blocks, and the size of the note is a bit more fluid. And I think Roam Research is probably a good candidate if you want to keep that fluidity. Other programs like Obsidian, probably you have to be more conscious of that and do that yourself. But it does raise the question though, when is a note a note? What is the boundary of that note? So let's take an example. If I'm reading this book here, Grit by Angela Duckworth, where essentially a book is one core theme with lots of references, lots of stories, and lots of reinforcement of that same thing. At least in this sense of a book. You do get other books where they touch more broadly across different subjects and bring it all together in some kind of landscape of ideas, and then you get the deep books which really go deep on a particular subject. So you might be tempted to create a fleeting note based on all the extracts, the highlights, the quotes, the ideas that you have from here, and you may just put those in one big note called Grit by Angela Duckworth. And then you want to create a literature note. And a literature note, just a reminder, is where you take what you've learned here in, say, Angela's words, and you want to put it in your words and your understanding. And that's really important because otherwise you'll only ever be able to recognize what is written from the text here when you see it, but you won't be able to recall it in the same way, and you certainly won't be able to talk about it from your own perspective and your own understanding. So when challenged to explain something to someone else, you might run into a bit of difficulty where you sort of understand, you know the concepts, but you can't recall the detail to make it sound like you know the concepts. That's where literature notes are really powerful. So you might be tempted to create then a literature note for Grit by Angela Duckworth and start rewriting your understanding, filtering out the bits that are duplicate, the bits that aren't really interesting. Again, you may want to catch the quotes and then repurpose what that means in your own words. And in this case, you might have the struggle of, well, is this one big long note? And then if you say, let's do it as lots of little notes, so each idea might portray something different or unique part of the understanding. But then what happens if you actually end up with the same idea twice, where one story in one part of the book is really saying the same thing just in a different way as another part of the book, and you're trying to repurpose that understanding in your own words, you realize, well, I'm saying the same thing. And in that case, it's okay to disregard the second one if it's not adding any value and keep the one note. You don't have to repeat yourself. And yeah, I mean, just keeping them in an atomic form is a good thing. And that is the essence of the Smart Notes way of doing things in the Zettelkasten, is that you want them to be atomic. In other words, a note, which is synonymous to an index card before the computerization of note-taking, is one core idea in your own words, your own understanding, so that you could pick that note out in a complete deck of notes and it would make sense. You don't need to read the note before and you don't need to read the note after for it to still make sense. And that's really important. And then with your literature notes, being able to reference other things to support what your understanding is, why you understand it this way, because of that other note or because of that study that proved this to be true. Those are really important. So my answer here to the original question, how do you stop your literature notes getting bigger and bigger and bigger, is think of them as atomic ideas. And if you can pull a section out and it makes sense on its own, and it's in your own words and your own understanding, that is a note in its own right. If you can pull it out but it doesn't make sense or is confusing, then either the note isn't concise enough, either you've written it in a way that isn't coherent enough, or that maybe a bit more of that note is required. But the moment that you start deviating and having multiple ideas in one note, that's a big red flag that it's too big. Break it down. And the reason for doing that is when you then want to organize it, when you want to link other ideas, you want to link to the specific thing. You don't want to link to the whole book again. That doesn't make any sense because you can't use that. It's not atomic. It's not a building block to further understanding. It's just a reference to a large book that you're not going to read over and over again. So atomic notes, keep them small, and that will help you. So I hope this video has been useful. On this channel, I do talk about note-taking and my journey in note-taking, and I'm building my own note-taking app called Flowtelic. The idea here is that it helps you study, learn, think, write, and publish with maximum efficiency and consistency. So I want to create more really engaging content, and I need a workflow to do that. So I decided to build my own app to do that. And I do share the updates of that on the channel as well. So if you're interested in that and learning about other software and other techniques about the productivity of things and the stuff that I'm learning, then do consider subscribing. And if you do want to check out the app and have a play with it, go to join.flowtelic.com, where you'll get instant access to the app. So thank you very much, and catch you in the next one.